Imagine sitting alone in your car, surrounded by darkness. You think you're safe behind locked doors and shatterproof glass. Then a massive, unrecognizable shape slams into your windshield, spiderwebbing the glass right in front of your face. That final, inescapable moment of terror is what psychologists refer to as a frozen memory. It's an instant where a single traumatic climax completely overrides your sense of psychological safety, effectively trapping your mind in that exact split second forever. But how does a person end up there? To understand the anatomy of this kind of trauma, we have to look back at this specific chain of human errors that led a group of friends from a completely mundane camping trip straight into an irreversible nightmare. The timeline starts hours earlier. 3 friends arrive at an isolated campsite, pitching their tent in near total darkness. They build a small, pathetic campfire, trying to push back an overwhelming, pitch-black forest. Sitting around those flames, they felt secure, but that warmth was purely a psychological illusion, masking just how deeply vulnerable they actually were in that environment. To pass the time, they did what people usually do in the woods. They sang songs and told made-up horror stories, artificially manufacturing fear to entertain themselves within their seemingly safe bubble. This diagram illustrates what we can call the campfire paradox. We have a bright circle of light representing the group's perceived safety. By focusing on fake ghost stories, they put on a cognitive blindfold. As you can see, the dark space, the actual threat zone, is rapidly encroaching, eventually overtaking the light entirely. Eventually, the stories stop and the friends go to sleep. In doing so, they drop that campfire's protective psychological barrier completely, entering a state of total vulnerability.
By spending their evening reacting to fictional threats, the group habituated themselves to high-stress cues in a low-stakes environment. When the environment shifted and the stakes became real, their brains were still calibrated for play, causing a delay in their defensive response that would prove impossible to correct. The inciting incident occurs deep in the night. The narrator snaps awake, suddenly shivering. From somewhere outside the tent, there is a distinct visceral sound, an animal consuming something heavy in the darkness. The narrator begins sweating and shaking uncontrollably. This is the correct biological response. Their nervous system accurately identified an auditory predatory threat and immediately triggered a physiological panic state to prepare for survival. The 2 friends wake up and have the exact opposite reaction. They mock the narrator's fear, displaying normalcy bias, the brain's tendency to minimize a threat and assume everything will carry on exactly as it always has. That bias leads straight to the fatal error. Rather than staying hidden, the 2 friends actively unzip the tent and step out into the complete, impenetrable darkness to investigate the chewing sound. Once they disappear past the glow of the campsite, the chewing stops. A heavy, absolute silence falls over the woods, indicating their immediate and unseen demise. Treating a legitimate predatory cue as a harmless curiosity ensured they never saw the attack coming. Unknown environments do not accommodate human arrogance, they punish it. Left alone, the narrator's paranoia hits its peak. Forced out of hiding by the suffocating silence, they slowly step out into the terrifying unknown to search for their missing friends. What they find shatters any remaining illusion of reality. High up on a thick tree branch, 2 dark, indistinguishable shapes hang heavily. They are the violently severed heads of the 2 friends. At the edge of this horrific scene, the narrator spots a tiny, furry, seemingly innocent animal. This introduces a biological concept known as a deceptive threat. In an impossible defiance of natural biology, that tiny creature begins to mutate. Its fuzzy silhouette rapidly and violently expands, contorting into a massive, unnatural monstrosity right in front of their eyes. This apex predator thrives on a very specific evolutionary advantage. It exploits the human instinct to lower our guard around small, harmless-looking things, weaponizing our basic empathy and turning it into a fatal trap. Faced with this towering threat, the narrator's primal fight response completely takes over. they abandon the remains of their friends and sprint blindly through the dense woods. They finally reach their vehicle, slam the door shut, and hit the locks. Panting in the driver's seat, they experience a brief moment of false salvation, believing the metal and glass barrier provides absolute safety. But as we saw at the very beginning, that safety shatters instantly. The monster effortlessly bridges the gap from the tree line, lunging onto the hood and crashing its weight directly against the windshield. Look at this timeline representing a brain's memory processing. The cognitive flow moves smoothly until it violently halts here, looking continuously at a massive spike labeled the incident. This is the exact psychological mechanism of trauma freezing. That specific visual of the monster on the glass becomes permanently burned into the survivor's psyche, halting all future mental progression. The survivor escapes the woods, but they never truly leave the vehicle.